And happy Thursday night to the world. This is Sam, and with me I've got Zeb and Ross. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
So, apologies due to some technical difficulties the other day. Couldn't go yesterday, but, it's a podcast. You can listen to this anytime. We're here tonight. It's going to be available. And welcome, and happy almost Seahawks Sunday to everybody.
We're getting there.
It's the night before the night before the night before.
Yeah. I saw on Twitter that they're already showing like the planes, so I'm assuming they're flying out pretty soon. I figured because it's an East Coast trip. This is one of their longest trips because their only other big trip I think is to like Jacksonville. I can't really think of any other big East Coast trips they have.
Well, with the Rams moving, the travel's really cut down, and it just seems like last year and this year, it's the way the schedule's dropped. We have like a lot less travel.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy to think because Seahawks, they will have one of the biggest travel schedules, but just having the team in LA is huge.
Yeah, one extra game a year that's on the West Coast, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the stars align so I can take like a road trip. I want to do like a game in Seattle, then like drive down to San Francisco, then drive down to LA, and then drive to Phoenix.
You want to do like 3 teams in a row?
That'd be awesome if they would do the schedule that way. I would totally do that.
What you need to wait for is when they play the NFC West one year, and then you can like try and hit up all of those teams.
You mean the AFC West?
I'm sorry, yes, AFC West.
That would be crazy. You could do like a San Francisco, LA. Oh, geez, that'd be really cool. Actually,
you'd have 3 LA. You'd have San Francisco, Oakland, LA.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Arizona. And then
you could hit like, and then of course the Seahawks game at home, so you could hit like 6 games all together.
That would be pretty sweet.
I would do that.
But yeah, so the Seahawks are going to play the Giants. So the Seahawks return to New York, really New Jersey, where they last stood as Superbowl champions, which feels like a really long time ago. But it was a weird week. We had a bye week, so the Seahawks were off. They technically dropped down to second place because they didn't play a game and the Rams won. But injuries are starting to mount up. There's two couple of big injuries that have, 2 actually giant injuries that have happened. And one is Luke Jokel. It used to be just a 1 week kind of a thing. They're saying he was just going to miss the Giants game. But now he's missing 4 to 5 weeks. And that's on top of the bye week.
Are you annoyed at that one?
I don't know if you could be annoyed, and because it's one of those things that it was probably something they thought was small, and then they cut him open and say like, "Wow, this is worse than it is." It's kind of,
man. Like he played every down last game. It didn't get worse after the game.
Yeah, but I think from a medical perspective, it probably would have led to something worse.
Then somebody on the medical staff should, like, because they when they signed him to $8 million for 1 season, they knew he had a bad knee. So did they not do the MRI? Who's negligent? Who didn't know?
Always somebody's got to be to blame for it.
Well, like it's $8 million for one dude. And if you knew he was going to miss 6 games, would they have signed him?
No, I mean it's an incredibly hard question. I understand you. Obviously it's frustrating because he was looking, more solid. I think that's the one thing that's really promising, that through these 5 games, starting with the first game against Green Bay into where we saw them against LA, the offensive line has been looking much more impressive. It's not helping our run game, but it's helping Russell Wilson stay upright, and that's more important.
I'm just saying, to me it really feels like a business decision he's making, which makes it feel like it's not really Seahawky.
He signed a 1-year deal. I mean, what do you want out of him? I mean, he has no guarantees outside of this year.
Well, I want somebody to do their job.
I mean,
too much to ask.
You're assuming that someone messed up and someone didn't do their job, which
Okay, even if I'm wrong, which I don't think I am, but even if I'm wrong, and I mean, like the dude, he could put this off. He could totally put this off.
Okay, we'll talk about this because we got a topic.
What are the,
so Michael Bennett has plantar fasciitis injury. It's actually
the same thing I have.
it hasn't kept him out. He was practicing on Wednesday and he's practicing today. They expect him to fully participate, so it's kind of like he can play through it. Now,
I have experience with that one. I have that, and all it means is every morning it really, really hurts. He'll be okay.
But he's a guy that definitely loves football, which, for you, Ross, I mean, that's right up your alley. He's sacrificing his body to continue to play.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, hard not to like.
I mean, literally, I have the exact same thing on my left foot. I mean, and I still go play dodgeball every Monday, and every Tuesday I feel it. Actually, literally, like every day, every morning when I first wake up in the morning, until my foot's kind of stretched out and relaxed, it's torture. There was one morning I'd actually go to take an MRI because I couldn't walk in the morning. But literally, like as the day goes by and the more you use it, it stretches out. You just got to kind of keep it warmed up. He'll be okay.
Yeah. And then potentially even of the biggest injuries is Cliff Averill. So this one's a really unique one. So Cliff Averill was chasing the quarterback out of bounds, and this is against the Indy game. So this is 3 weeks ago now, and chasing Jacoby Brissett out of bounds. Someone clipped the back of his neck, and then there's rumors that he was going to be done for his career, that he was going to retire. Cliff Averill has now refuted that he's not talking about retiring. He's just saying he's making sure that he's getting healthy. He's been officially put on IR, which means that the Seahawks are down a star defensive lineman. This is a guy that came off a Pro Bowl season who had been playing pretty well this year, and he's not going to be available for the foreseeable future, which is a pretty big blow to the Seahawks.
Yeah, it sucks.
That hurts. That hurts big time. But compared to most years, I mean, this might be a year that we might be more in a position to handle it better than, for example, last year or particularly 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Seahawks are more equipped depth-wise. I think they learned from last year how thin they got. There's definitely positions where they still need some help, but, they've got, obviously, Frank Clark. They still have Michael Bennett, who's going to play. They have Marcus Smith, who's been playing really well, and they also potentially have Deion Jordan, who's been practicing again. And, Malik McDowell is back with the team. He's actually, getting into conditioning. They haven't released a whole lot of information, but those are all really positive signs that, certain components are potentially coming back, and that's going to be huge because they don't have any more bye weeks. There's no rest until the end of the year and until the playoffs. So we'll see where that leads to.
We don't think Malik's going to contribute this year, do we?
I personally don't think that he's going to play this year. I think they're.
He's a rookie, and he hasn't done anything since OTAs. So even if he does get healthy, what's he going to do? I mean, he hasn't practiced. He hasn't learned. I mean, he hasn't played with anybody. He hasn't. Yeah, I think it's a lot to ask for a rookie. I think he's done.
Well,
I mean, you're probably right.
Yeah. I think the way that they probably look at it, it's going to be kind of like a medical red shirt kind of a thing. They put him still on non-football injury, which means that he doesn't have an accrual. He'll still be a rookie next year, so his contract technically doesn't kick in. Obviously, I'm sure
his status is like official dumbass. Like,
yeah,
they don't have to pay you. You don't get an accrued year. You get nothing because you screwed up.
it would actually be really interesting to see like how his. I'm assuming he's basically just living off his signing bonus, and then he doesn't get paid.
I sort of feel like the Seahawks way of I sort of feel like they're probably paying something similar to what like the practice squad players are getting.
Well, that's just they technically couldn't. They technically couldn't. My guess is that he's just living off his signing bonus,
which is how much?
He's second round pick, so it's probably like 1 point something.
Like a bajillion.
I mean, it's more money than we'll see, but yeah.
There's a lot more zeros than on your paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were
zero zeros.
Yeah. So, it'll be interesting, but what's kind of interesting even more so, and we'll talk about in topic 2, but I feel like, and Ross, you alluded to this, injuries have been kind of a huge part of the year, but I wouldn't say that injuries have hurt the team yet. There's still a lot of games to be played, but there wasn't anything. Maybe our running game at the end of the year, we'll see that come to haunt us a little bit more, but for the most part, it hasn't crippled us.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with the line. I thought during the bye week I had convinced myself they were going to be proactive and sign Brandon Albert.
Yeah,
So,
well, Bob Condotta on the Seattle Times is talking about he's still in Seattle. He's like gotten news that for the past like week he's just been in Seattle. The latest news is he's officially retired again.
oh really?
Yeah.
But if he's still hanging out in Seattle, I think that's just I think it's posturing. I think basically he's a left tackle, so he's used to getting bank, and it's mid-season and nobody's offering him anything. And Seattle's probably giving him the best offer, but he's like, that's all I'm going to make. But I'm like, dude, it's better than zero, which is what you're making now.
Maybe
Yeah.
he fell in love with the city.
Yeah.
That's very likely too. He's probably down there like throwing fish around at Pike Place Market.
Hanging out with the fishmongers. It's very
That's what
true.
we all do up there.
Dude, I mean, I've seen Monday Night Football. That's what they do. That's what they show.
Yeah. And, even crazier still is the league, fans, non-fans, politicians, the president. We're still talking about the anthem, players protesting, players taking a knee, players being expected to do all these things. It's still a conversation. And that leads us to topic number 1. So, topic number 1, should Seahawks players stick to sports? Ross, let me know what you think.
Obviously not. I mean, it's been alluded to here and there. I mean, like, players do. So. Russell Wilson's most famous for his scrambling ability. The number 2 thing he's probably most famous for is going to Children's Hospital every, I want to say Tuesday?
Yep.
Monday? Every Tuesday? Every Tuesday. And nobody's ever said, like, I don't want him to do that. And certain players, for example, like they funded schools and equipment for inner city poor schools. I mean, there's all kinds of giant, massive charities. I mean, like if you went as a percentage of income that went to charity for NFL players, I would say it'd be higher than the average millionaire. Yes, they are millionaires now, but like Richard Sherman said 7 years ago, that guy had minus $45 checking account. So this, I think a lot of them really do feel where they've come from. Not all of them are, from poor neighborhoods, but some of them are middle class and so on. But they all give back. Almost all give back. Every stadium, every NFL stadium, even and team contributes to these things, and it's only when people don't like the causes that they take out the refrain, stick to football. Yeah, but you didn't mind it when for example, they gave $1 million to the inner city YMCA. But if they also want to help the people who would attend that YMCA not get shot, for example, if they felt that was an issue anyway, if somebody did, then all of a sudden you want them to shut up. I mean, it's very hypocritical to me.
Yeah, it is. I think mostly what you say I agree with 100%. I think that the players owe it to each other and to their team and their owners to focus on football, to at least to the point where they're able to do their job as good as possible. But outside of that, they have a responsibility to their communities to give back as well. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%. They need to focus on football to a certain degree so they can do their jobs properly. Outside of that, because of their position and the platform that they have, I think they have a responsibility to do more than football.
And that's the thing. Everybody would agree with you until they don't like what's being said.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
If America was sliding even further down a fascist road and somebody spoke up and said, hey, go democracy, and that person happened to be famous for dancing with the stars or something, we wouldn't say, I'd stick to dancing. We'd be like, yeah, man, that's right. Screw fascism.
Exactly.
I think a lot of what...
Yeah.
I think a lot of what comes down to is what both of you have alluded to is people want to feel as if they can align themselves with these players to a certain degree. And if it's an athlete like Russell Wilson going and spending time at Children's Hospital on his day off, that makes it feel like, I like this guy, I can relate to him. If he were down in, South Seattle talking to inner city youth, people probably wouldn't take too much of an issue with that. It's like, here's a guy trying to help out in the community. He's going to an area of need. That's a great thing. But the thing stems from once it's something that people are not comfortable with, or it's something that they don't understand, or they feel that it's too much of a distraction, that's where they draw the line. And that's where I hear a lot of people, I've read a lot online, on our forum at hawkscast.com, on Twitter, on other places. People have always said this is a distraction. They aren't able to focus on football. But, most human beings can do multiple things. While their day is filled with a lot of football things, they do have a lot of downtime. Richard Sherman has talked about it a lot. Based upon the current CBA, they're only at the VMAC from like 8 in the morning until like 2 o'clock. They have the afternoons off where they are allowed to do other things. Some of them relax, some of them do their charitable work. But it doesn't mean that because they're doing these other non-football things that their attention from football is being drawn away. And that's the thing that I have the hardest time trying to understand. How is it possible for people to say, well, if they do this thing that I don't like, they must not be able to do this other thing?
I mean, I sort of get it. I think people feel like NFL players, because of their job and because of their salary, should be like sort of 24 hours 7 on the job kind of thing. But A, that's not realistic. B, it's not even what the CBA allows. And C, it's not even what sports psychologists will tell you is the best. You can't stay sharp if you try to stay sharp 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You want to peak yourself out mentally on Sunday afternoon.
But the other thing is, a lot of these guys aren't even millionaires. Yeah, a lot of them make multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, but not all of these guys protesting that are making these stances, that are giving their time to charity, are millionaires. It takes them years and years and years for them to get to that point.
And then even when you hear about them signing a $2 million contract, remember the tax bracket that puts them in, minus everything else. If you sign a $2 million contract, you're probably just barely a millionaire. If you sign a $1 million contract, you're not even close. Yeah. You're probably $600,000. And that's over the course of the season. If you're in week 2, you've only gotten, not only, but I mean, you're talking $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 game checks. So yes, it's huge, but that's a whole salary for someone else. But it's not. They're not the multi-millionaires. They're not like Mr. Moneybucks that we like to think of them as sometimes.
Right. Yeah, only certain guys get to that level.
Like Russell, give me a loan, man. I'll pay you back. I'm good for it.
So to kind of echo our points that we're all kind of in consensus, here's a couple charities and foundations that the Seahawks and players are connected with. And this comes from Seahawks, their website. So from Seahawks.com, you can go to Seahawks.com/community/foundation. The Seahawks partner with the Spirit of 12, the Paul G. Allen Family Foundation, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, Campfire USA, Girl Scouts, and Special Olympics. And these are all regional groups. These are all the regional charities within the greater Seattle area.
I wish those guys would just stick to sports.
Right. Then this is the Coaches and Players Foundation. So Pete Carroll has 2. He has a Better Seattle and a Better LA. He's been doing Better LA since his time in USC. He started a Better Seattle when he moved to Seattle. Russell Wilson has a bunch of them. The one that he's currently talking about is Why Not You? John Ryan has one where it's called Gear Up. It's about helping get equipment for teams, and he's the punter. Cliff Averill has the Averill Family Foundation. Michael Bennett has the Bennett Foundation. Cam Chancellor has Cam Chairs Foundation. Richard Sherman has Blanket Coverage, Richard Sherman Family Foundation. Earl Thomas has the Guardian Angel Foundation. And earlier this year, Tartler Lockett worked with Head Start to help get playground equipment for schools, to help schools have better resources so kids could be more active. And the Seahawks also started SeahawksFoundation.org, which is their answer to what people and players are protesting during the anthem right now, which is getting money, helping police get better training, get better education, work on de-escalation tactics, so that way they can make the community safer. I don't know if you guys saw the article in the Seattle Times about Doug Baldwin. Did any of you guys get a chance to read that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't read it all the way through, but I definitely read up on it a little bit.
I read.
Yeah, so it's the one by Matt Calkin, and essentially what it talked about is Doug Baldwin has spent more than the past year, ever since the Seahawks linked arms and kind of stood as one of the larger teams to take this on as a whole, where he has been working with attorney generals. He's actually called all 50 attorney generals in the U.S. He's talked to multiple police departments. His father was a police officer. His grandfather was a U.S. Air Forceman, I believe, or someone in the military. So he has never taken a knee. He's always stood. But the things that he's done, I think any person would say, here's a guy that's not only talked about it vocally, but actually made a lot of attempts to find a solution, get more answers. So it's interesting, and I don't know, what did you guys take a look at that and have a chance to read a little bit more? Not
you
here.
there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
I don't know. You're like cutting out a little bit.
Oh, sorry about that. So did you guys
what was the question?
Did you guys have? What was your reaction to the article?
Well, like I said, I didn't read it in full detail, but I think that I know Doug is a smart dude, and I trust him to make good decisions, and if he's working towards something, then I believe it's probably for the better. And anything you can do to help improve the policing in this country, I think has to be a good thing. So I'm personally on board with. I didn't read the letter him and Goodell wrote or whatever, so I'm not really sure about all that, but I have faith that Doug is working towards something that's positive for all of us.
I find it kind of surprising that that's not something that's getting more coverage, because it is so relevant to what players are protesting. But, it could be that that's not as juicy of an article to hear or to read or to talk about.
Well, I think that's probably exactly it. It's a lot more going to get a lot more ratings if there's a giant disagreement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what he's doing is something very nuanced and it's very, very difficult to just kind of summarize. And also you run the risk of upsetting cops, because by the fact of saying you're helping retrain or re-educate or whatever, you're implying there's something wrong with something done now. And the country idolizes cops and idolizes the military, and it's a dangerous thing, and it's a hard thing if you're a newspaper writer to write something that's really going to get it across in the way you want it to, in the column space you're allowed, right? I think he's way ahead of the curve, though, because I think so much of this comes back to how the police are trained and what kind of training you get, and the mentality that's installed in the police, and rules of engagement. I mean, like from step one, I mean, like the police in America are sort of trained more like an occupying force. It's not their fault. That's how they're trained. I feel like it was a big overreaction in the 80s, or maybe it was a necessary reaction in the 80s, but things aren't like that anymore. But that started a trend towards militarization, and it's kind of looking at the idea that they're not really serving the community, rather they're just sort of stomping down criminals, and then it's caused obviously a giant vacuum and discord in society.
Here's a question for you guys, because it has become such a topic in the NFL. You have newspapers that normally don't talk about the NFL talking about it. You have radio shows, talk shows. You have the president talking. Do you see the players, the owners, the league trying to come together and say, like, hey, we want to support you, but we kind of want this to go away? Do you see a light at the end of this tunnel?
The reason why I don't, just basing it off of what our brave commander-in-chief has done about it thus far, it almost seems like he prefers there to be disagreement, for there to be conflict involving this type of stuff. It's almost like he's, for whatever reason, either feeding into it or feeding off of it. He loves this battle he's going with right now. So, because it seems like if he would kind of leave it alone and let the NFL handle it, last year after a certain point we kind of stopped talking about it, right?
Right.
Once good old 45 jumped into it, now it just became a bigger issue. So, if he wants to keep battling this thing and keep making this an issue in his tweets or whatever else, it's not going to go away. It's going to get bigger, I think.
I think it's about to go. I think I think the president did a really smart thing somehow, accidentally maybe. He just kind of backed in. His fight or flight instinct kind of actually ended up being a smart move this time. We've talked about this before. Once you make it all about patriotism, once you ignore what actually people, the protesters, are saying what it's about, and they've kind of made themselves vulnerable by not being clear, when you leave yourself open to letting other people take over the message. That's what we talked about last year. And this year, the nightmare scenario has happened where the person taking over the message is the president. The president's making a patriotic thing. And then you get huge amounts of Americans who are either on the fence or even on your side now not comfortable because they don't want to be seen by their neighbors and by their friends, by their own self-image as being against the flag. And if that's what's going to be interpreted as, they're not going to do that. And so the NFL owners, they don't want to be in that position either. So they're going to buy off the players. And I'm not going to hold that against them. They're going to say it because in a sense, it might even be good. I think the NFL is going to put in concrete, like you talked about, Sam. They've already established certain charities for certain teams to make concrete moves. Say, you know what? If you're protesting because you don't like the inequality of the justice system in America, then we're going to make this charity, and it's going to go towards money towards retraining cops, or it's going to go towards whatever, community building, or whatever it is they need to do. So it might even actually indirectly result in more maybe concrete action anyway. But I think no matter what, those protests are on their way out.
Well, did you see the petition that Trump put out earlier today?
I just read it on my taxi ride home.
What's the petition?
So it's a stand for the national anthem petition. They're
Are
encouraging
you supposed
people.
to submit petitions to the president? I don't think the president is supposed to be writing and creating petitions himself, is he?
I don't think so.
I don't think he understands what his job entails. But
so
that's...
Does he know what a
the
president is?
In the statement, he put something like, since the owners refuse to force the players to stand for the national anthem, like those were the words. If the owners refuse to force the players to do it, like, how many levels of wrong is that?
Well,
Like in a democracy, what does it mean that you have that when you force somebody to sing your anthem or force somebody to pledge allegiance or whatever?
Well,
Isn't the whole idea of democracy you're supposed to make a good enough country that people want to pledge allegiance to you or want to sing your national anthem? And if they don't, maybe they have a point where you should be listening and engaging them. That's all I gotta say, man.
But that's
the
the
whole
thing,
idea
though.
of democracy is you're supposed to like. It's fascism, it's communism, it's Leninism, it's Maoism that forces you to be into an allegiance. The whole idea of a republic, the whole idea of a Western style democracy is consent of the people.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting, though, here is
they want to be loyal.
the Seahawks are taking an approach that no other team is willing to do. And maybe because we're all fans of the Seahawks, we are much more in tune to it.
It's because it's up in hippie land. Don't cut around the corners.
Yeah. As liberal as Seattle as it is, there's a lot of non-liberal people that are still fans of the Seahawks that I feel, due to this exposure, will kind of be shown that it's not as simple as, oh, you're not standing for the flag. I do think, and polls have shown this, before Trump made his statement, less people understood why players were protesting. But after his statement, there's been a big shift and more people now understand. I don't think it means that they're sympathetic or they want to believe that players are not standing for the right reason. It's just that they don't want the distraction. That's what I hear a lot of. But we're gonna press on. We're gonna talk about topic number 2, which is a safer NFL.
We're going to stick to sports now.
So we're telling ourselves to shut up and stick to sports. And topic number 2 is, would the Seahawks benefit from a safer NFL? And a lot of this stems from a big injury to a marquee player in the NFL. That's Aaron Rodgers. So in a game against the Vikings, a linebacker squared up. It was a step into Aaron Rodgers' throw after he'd released the ball. Guy carried him to the floor. Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone. Really affected my fantasy team. I'm really upset by that. But
Affected mine.
But that's the question that's being raised right now. Like, can the NFL be made safer? Like, should that hit have been considered illegal? It wouldn't have changed the injury, but maybe it tries to deter players from making that kind of a move. What do you think, Zeb? How would you feel about the NFL trying to legislate safety in the NFL?
Well, I have a couple of different schools of thought on this whole making the NFL safer. Because there's a couple, obviously there's rules you can put in place that you believe would make the game safer. There's things you can do with equipment. In particular, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'd been told that there are better, safer helmets available, and the NFL's not using them. So I don't know if that's a thing. That's obviously something that I think is the responsibility of the NFL to make sure that the equipment is as up to date and safe as it can be. As far as rules go, they've been over the last 20 to 30 years, implementing rule changes every other year or so that are supposed to make the game safer. Sometimes they probably do. You can't take away the physicality of the game, though, and that's always going to be the biggest thing that makes the game unsafe. These guys are stronger and faster than they've ever been. There's no way to really mitigate those collisions and make them 100% safe. Now, the Aaron Rodgers injury, I do believe that the way the defender fell on him was intentional. And I see this a lot where the guy, you make a tackle, but you add that push at the end, add a little bit of a extra force, and that's, to me, that's dirty. I know it's really hard to legislate that, to make a rule, because it's pretty objective. The referee has to believe that it was a certain type of tackle, that it was intentional. So, I don't know if the Seahawks in particular would benefit from a safer NFL. I mean, obviously, players physically would benefit from a safer NFL, but I think in all, the sport probably would suffer from too many rules, too many things trying to change the way it's played, make it less impactful and safer. I think probably eventually, might be 20 years, but eventually the game's probably going to change and not be the game of football that we know now, as we've seen it change over the last 20 or 30 years already.
Yeah. What about you, Ross?
I think at some point society's just going to have to decide whether we're going to allow a certain segment of our society to be rough and tumble. Yes, we know that things should be safer and nicer, and you know what? Like, it's great that cars are much safer than they used to be, and it's great that airplanes are safer than they must be. Some things, though, there's a certain segment of society that has always been the warriors, and I don't want to be getting into that whole thing. Oh, don't call football players warriors because the real warriors are out. No, you know what? It's the same kind of people. It's a drawing from the same type of people. There are certain people who have that drive in them that, and some of it's instinctual, and you can't just ignore human instinct. Like, there are a certain percentage, particularly of men, but also women, that have a desire and a need almost to be physical. Back in the days, they would have been the ones that are kind of defending it. Like, they're not even necessarily the people who join the military today, because the military today isn't about that kind of physicality necessarily in normal life, in most jobs of it. These are the people 200, 300, 400 years ago would have been the actual warriors defending your camp. And those people today have a place. We have to let them have a place. And if we're entertained by it, so much the better. But we've got to back off on the constant. We know better than them. They should be taking care of this. CTE, this or that. And the other thing, no matter what your sport is, no matter what your hobby is, no matter what you do, it's going to cost something. If you love skiing, you're eventually going to break your leg. If you love driving your car every weekend, eventually you're going to have a car accident. Yes, if you love football, eventually you're going to have some injuries. You can't legislate it all out. You just have to assess somebody. You can make it reasonable. If you can make a better helmet, great, make a better helmet. Better yet, maybe get rid of the helmet so people don't use the head as a weapon. Yeah. But you can make certain things that are just reasonable, of course. But at the end of the day, you have to accept there's going to be a certain amount of injuries, and that's actually kind of what makes part of the human experience. It's hard. It's not fun and polite to say anymore. One of the most impressive games I saw in my life as a kid was watching Joe Ferguson, quarterback for the Bills, play a whole game with a broken leg out of shotgun. Or Jack Youngblood played in the Super Bowl in 1979 with a broken left leg. I mean, It's a dinosaur thing to do expression, but you know what? That's freaking manly. And still has to be a place. And if we don't want that to have a place anymore, then I worry because the rest of the world isn't going to be quote unquote as progressive as us, and we're going to have to live and compete in a world with the Chinas and the Russias that's still going to allow certain segments of themselves to be aggressive. And I just think it's a symbol and a sign of a larger trend that I'm afraid of. So no, doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. So
if people want to go hurt themselves, let them go hurt themselves. It's okay.
I think you can't legislate safety in a sport like football because it is such a physical sport. NFL is so unique where you basically try to minimize damage to your most expensive products on the field, which are the quarterbacks. But the problem will always be they're not wrapped in saran wrap. They are still allowed to be hit within the confines of the rules, and that's going to allow these things to happen. You look at Russell Wilson's injuries that he had last year, only one of them was a dirty play. I don't think the Ndamukong Suh happening to step on the back of Russell Wilson's heel was intentional. That's very, very skillfully, intentionally trying to injure someone. Whereas a couple games later when he got horse collared, that was obviously a bad foul. But those are all part of the game. Yeah, you don't want someone to get horse collar, which is why it's a rule, but I think it's really hard to tell someone in the middle of the game, hey, heads up, you're trying to stop that guy, but here's the only things that you can do to stop that guy. Instincts take over. You're going to try and stop that guy, regardless of the reasons. So that's the way it works. The injuries that the Seahawks suffered so far throughout the year, none of those are preventable by any stretch. You can't stop Malik McDowell from going on an ATV without a helmet. You can't stop Chris Carson from getting rolled and having his legs pinned. You can't stop and create a rule so that Cliff Averill doesn't have his neck, injured after he tackles a player on the sidelines. It's not possible. And the people that are trying to say that, either they're just being reactionary to a huge loss, which is a star like Aaron Rodgers, whether you like him or not. But that's what it is. Tom Brady, he had an MRI. He's got a bad non-throwing shoulder. He's playing, but, one big hit, and he might be done for the year and his career.
It's football.
Yeah, I mean, I see actually the push by some of the owners now for some more safety is more about their wallets than anything else anyway. It's not really the players they're concerned with. It's about protecting their star players who they've invested a lot of money in. But, it's always been part of the game. Like, when you start talking about this kind of topic last week, I looked a lot of stuff up, and it's been every generation of footballers. Every football player, misses some time. Not every, most at some time. I looked up some of the all-time greats. Johnny Unitas had a missed season. Joe Montana had a missed season. Steve Young had many missed games with concussions. Steve Largent famously missed most of a season after Harden had an illegal hit on him.
Yeah.
Players have all, Kurt Warner, 1984, first game, first quarter, blew out his knee. It's always been part of the game. O.J. Simpson, before he was not such a nice guy. Back when he was the juice, right? He missed time with bad knees. Everybody does. It's just part of the game.
It is, indeed.
I think that's also what makes the game as fun as it is. Now, speaking of fun, we've got the Homer Corner coming up, and it's topic number 3. Which Seahawk player would you like to go trick-or-treating with? Ross, I know Halloween's a little bit different where you are, but I know you're familiar with
I'm doing Halloween over there this year, buddy.
That's right. You're going to be in town for Halloween.
I will be over there for Halloween.
Which player would you hang out with? Which player are you going trick-or-treating with? Maybe, egging some houses, going toilet papering some houses too.
I want a trick-or-treating group, and I want to go with John Ryan, and I go with Luke Wilson and Cam Chancellor.
That's the crew. You guys going as Ninja Turtles?
Well, that's my crew, because I think John Ryan and Luke Wilson would just be hilarious to hang out with on Halloween, right? But then there's the other element of Halloween. Halloween is also it's sometimes underplayed these days, but it's also the scary day, right? And is there anything scarier than Cam Chancellor? Just like Cam Chancellor dressed as Cam Chancellor.
That would be
I'm
very
just
frightening.
I'm game day Cam Chancellor. 6'4", 280, bulging muscles, sweaty, and he's got his what's it called? The under black on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what are you dressed as? I'm Cam Chancellor. Scariest costume ever. That's my crew, man.
You'd have to hire a Vernon Davis lookalike just to get beat up by Cam. Make it even scarier.
we'd have like extra quarterback or like wide receiver jerseys just hanging out. Like every time we go somewhere, so they don't give us the right kind of candy, we'd have them dress up. Oh, do you want to dress up with this? Oh, Cam, sick him. Look. He's dressed as Michael Crabtree. Hit him. So that's my crew.
Zeb, do you have a crew? Are you who are you going with?
Well, I think I am going to stick with the Ninja Turtles situation, and I know that Bobby Wagner would be into that because that's his
jam.
That's his jam, and I also think Tyler Lockett, who, again, I've mentioned him before as being like the kind of guy that I think is probably a lot of fun to hang out with. He looks like a Ninja Turtle fan as well.
He looks like a kid. That's just the answer to get more candy anyway.
Yeah. So I think between the three of us, we could convince one more guy to come along. Maybe Russell. Maybe Russell could be Leo.
You don't want Leo to go. I mean, you don't want Russell Wilson to go trick or treating with you because like it hits like 7:30 and be like, guys, it's getting dark. I think we got to go back. And you're like, Russ, dude, we're just going around the block one more time, man. Like, no,
yeah, we could bring Sierra. Sierra could be April O'Neil.
Yeah, but also the other thing with that is like he's gonna make you share all your candy with the other kid who didn't go out with you.
Okay, fine. Russell can sit at home.
You have to give 1/3 of your chocolate to Sam because Sam didn't go good trick or treating this year.
Okay, so then we'll let Earl take Russell's place, and Earl will steal other people's candy.
He'll like knock just before they get home, just before they walk in the doors. He's gonna run over and like chop their hand and make them drop their candy bag.
Exactly. And just stare at him with those eyes, like I told you not to come around here with your candy.
So I have two groups that I would go with. If I was going for candy, I would go with Doug Baldwin and Richard Sherman because those guys seem like a pair that would come up with a plan and say, all right, we're going to this neighborhood, we're hitting these houses because they give you full-size candy bars. We would get the best candy score with Doug and with Richard. If I wanted to cause problems, I go with Michael Bennett and Frank Clark.
Oh yeah,
those guys. I think they know how to make some mischief in a good natured kind of way. I don't think there would be anything like vandalism, but maybe a couple toilet rolls end up on someone's house who it's got like a Dallas Cowboy sticker on their truck or something like that. They might end up with some toilet paper. There's someone with the Pittsburgh Steelers terrible flag in the back seat of their car, and maybe there's a flaming dog bag of poop on their porch, those kind of things. Those are the guys that I'd like to hang out with. But what's interesting is, with that in mind, there's definitely something about the players that I think we all see that we like, and that's what makes this such an interesting topic. Is there anyone who would be an absolute buzzkill? Ross, you kind of alluded to Wilson.
I'm kind of rethinking my idea about Russell Wilson, though, because you kind of brought something up. It's the preparation. The separation is the preparation. And I feel like Russell Wilson would like go around asking kids like where they did well last year with candy, and he'd have like the neighborhood mapped out, and he'd be like we skipped this house because they give out candy corn, and we skipped this house because they give out toothbrushes, but we hit this house twice with 2 different costumes because they give out full size Reese's Pieces.
I've seen kind of the jock bully side of Russell Wilson before, just briefly, but I think it's there. and so I think that when it comes to something like this, he's probably got a bit of a bloodlust. Like he'll make it happen. Remember when in the Super Bowl and they went to throw the Gatorade on Pete, and there was like a photographer in the way, and Russell was like trying to be polite at first, like move, but then he like kind of like just shoved the guy out of the way. I think that's the real Russell.
I mean, he's admitted like he was a bully once before when he was younger. So
Yeah.
Once a bully, always a bully.
Yeah.
I think somebody else who could potentially be a buzzkill would be like the entire coaching staff. They're all just so awesome, but I just don't think that I can't think of one coach I think would be awesome for trick or treating.
Oh God, Bevel would be like, this was a pagan holiday.
Yep. Right, and then like Pete Carroll would talk about like all the conspiracies about it. And,
Hey, don't get those two together on Halloween.
I just.
You know what?
Yeah,
the one player that I think would be a buzzkill would be Blair Walsh. Nothing against Blair, nothing against kickers, but he looks like the kind of guy like, I don't do candy, it's not good for my body. He seems like a guy that's kind of a high maintenance kind of guy. So I don't see him really digging the idea of gorging on sugar and sweets and snacks.
Right. Probably.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I heard him on 7:10 a.m. a clip of it earlier this week, and he was actually a little bit cooler than I expected. I mean, like you look at him and you think he looks like he's about 5'6", 130, but apparently he's 5'10", 190, which just blows my mind. But like he's actually like he's kind of funny. He's kind of interesting to talk to listen to.
That's like Steve Largent size.
He kind of reminds me of my body as a temple kind of a thing, though, and I don't want to hang around someone like that on Halloween.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. I mean, now Hauschka's kind of the same thing. I don't think I want to hang Hauschka.
No, he's not even on the team anymore, so we don't have to worry about that.
Exactly.
All right. So we got topic number 4. So we actually have a game on Sunday, so it'll be fun. The Seahawks will not be facing a winless team. Does that make the New York Giants a bigger threat? We talked about this online when we were just chatting back and forth. You don't want to face the team that's winless because you don't want to be that first team that they get a win against. You don't want to.
There's no upside.
Right, there's no upside. You don't want to play the team that gets their coach fired because they're usually very spirited that first game because they finally we played so bad, we got our coach fired. That's not this case with this Giants team because they're 1-5, but you look at the stats, you look at their roster, you look at their injuries, and you look at their quarterback, and what do you think, Zeb?
First of all, their coach is McAdoo.
Ben McAdoo.
Is that right? What kind of name is that? Is that Irish?
He's a former offensive coordinator who apparently did not tell his team that he was not going to be calling plays anymore, and then they ended up rolling the Broncos.
Yeah, right. Going into last week, the Giants looked like a disaster. They'd lost like their top 4 wide receivers or something crazy like that. Just weren't playing well. Not much of a run game to speak of. Eli's being Eli, early season Eli, before his weird little playoff magic turns on for whatever reason. But then they went out and actually played a hell of a game against a pretty good Broncos team. Came away with the win. So I don't know. It's hard to call at this point now after seeing that. We're historically pretty good against Eli, and good in that stadium. Where once again we have the luck of the scheduling gods, and we have an East Coast game that's not at 10 a.m. our time, which is pretty much virtually unheard of.
Yeah.
And we're coming off a bye. We should be well rested. Obviously, we have our own injury issues, but at this point, I don't know. I don't have any reason to believe that we won't walk out of there with a pretty, maybe not an impressive win, but it should be a decisive victory, I would think.
What about you, Ross? What you thinking?
I mean, like, originally I didn't really want to play them at their 0-6. Like I said, there's no upside. If you win, you beat a team that doesn't have a win. If you lose, you're the first team to lose to that team. So it's kind of, there's not a one. No, but at the same time, now I'm thinking, at 1-5, they beat a pretty respectable Broncos team. Things kind of started clicking for the first time. Maybe they've got that vague thing. I don't always even believe in momentum going. Maybe a bit of confidence going on, and I do believe in confidence. And So maybe they're just a bit more of a dangerous team. So I guess I'd still rather play the 0. If you're 0-6, your season's really, really all but done. You're kind of out the door. You're thinking about next year already. 0-6, they're kind of demoralized. Your coach is still named McAdoo, so you're not really that good. And I think I'd rather play that team than the 1-5 where there's like a flicker of hope, where their backs are against the wall every game and every game is their last. And now all of a sudden McAdoo's like, McAdoo, not McAdon't. and all of a sudden, they've got some spark. I think I would have rather play the 0-6 version. But, either way, though, as Zeb said, I think we've overmatched them. Do they have a wide receiver who could possibly get open against our depth at cornerback? No way.
Oh, they will.
Bench all those dudes in fantasy. They'll have like 3 receptions to the quarterback, to the wide receiver, man. It's gonna be bad. They're gonna throw a lot to the tight end.
I like your attitude.
Yeah.
I'm a McAdoo man, not a McAdon't man.
Is that an Irish name, McAdoo? Is that like a...
It's actually Scottish, isn't it? If it's Mac, it's Irish. It's Mick, it's Scottish, isn't it?
It's MCADOO, I believe.
Yes, he's like Scottish, right?
Yeah, but no, he pronounces it McAdoo. I mean, that's what everybody says, right?
Well, everybody says McDonald's too in some cities for some reason. But it's Mick. I don't know. So look it up.
I think
he's vaguely Gaelic. Okay, let's just leave it at that.
This team is so bad. It's something that you hope the Seahawks don't try to sleepwalk through it. That they don't try and say like, oh, they're down to their 5th and 6th and 7th receiver. We're gonna have a field day.
Do you believe in trap games? Do you believe in the theory of trap games?
I believe in the fact that players are humans, and as much as they want to think that they are looking at only what's in front of them, they're humans. They might be thinking ahead. I don't think that means that they're going to like just fall on their ass and play a terrible game, but I think it means that they will not be as sharp as we need them to be. Right. It's a road game. It's in New Jersey. They're not the New York Giants. They're the New Jersey Giants. Suck it, East Coast. But at the same point, it's still an NFL team. They played a very specific style of game against the Broncos, and they took advantage of a quarterback that wasn't playing well. I have a friend, Bryce. Thank you for listening. He's a Denver fan, and I asked him, like, hey, I'm going to play Trevor Siemian as my quarterback in fantasy because I got a bunch of bye weeks. What do you think? He's like, oh, yeah, he'll get 5 touchdowns. And I said, okay, I'll text you when he gets his 5th touchdown. And I told him it was probably going to be in week 10. But it ended up being true. He had 1 garbage time touchdown. But that was a game that, on paper, it looked like the Broncos would be able to walk through it because they had the better defense. Eli doesn't have any weapons. They had a strong run defense, but they allowed their running game to explode and get over 140 yards. That's crazy. If the Seahawks fall into that trap, I would be concerned. I'd like to think that they're not that team that's going to sleepwalk through it, but we'll see. I don't think it matters what kind of team this Giants would have been. The fact that Odell Beckham Jr. is not there, that hurts the Giants, no question. But maybe making changes to the offensive play calling was really what they needed, because sometimes the head coach can't see everything that he needs to see because he's focusing on the offense and the defense. So we'll see. But I don't think it makes them a bigger threat. I just think that the Seahawks need to prepare as they always would, regardless of who the opponent is.
I like it.
Yeah. Final thoughts about the Giants before we get into some other stuff.
Well, let's beat them.
God, their uniforms are still annoying.
Why are their uniforms annoying?
Like, why they just write the name of the team on the side of the helmet rather than bother to come up with an image? Why does every team just do that? Just write Rams or Seahawks.
It doesn't say the name of the team anymore. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like that's the kind of team it is. It's annoying. Like, get some creativity. First of all, be honest about where you're from. Like, just own it. Just own New Jersey.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not that bad. Like, way back in the day when Trump was, like, not a president, when he was actually trying to have, like, a football team, he owned, like, the New Jersey Generals, right?
Yeah,
it's not that
XFL.
bad to call yourself from New Jersey. It's like, just own it, man. It's okay.
Yeah,
This
but
is
you ask some New Yorkers that are fans of the Jets or the Giants, and you're like, your team's not really in New York. They'll get chapped. So
Oh yeah, you can't do that to them.
yeah.
But it's kind of a trend, right? Like San Francisco's not really in San Francisco.
No, they're in Santa Clara. Santa Clara's like more than an hour away from San Francisco.
Yeah, and then there's several teams that don't really play where they play, right? And
Yeah,
there's some
New
teams
England's,
like don't wanna-
roundabout about it.
right? Like some teams like kind of like just want to be like purposely vague. They name it for the state.
Yeah,
I mean,
We're like
Dallas,
Minnesota. We're
right? The Cowboys don't play in Dallas, right?
yeah.
Right,
They play
right.
in Irving. I want to say Irving,
Yeah.
Texas.
They used to. I'm not sure that's where they still play. Is the new stadium still in Irving?
I don't know. I
It's
don't really care.
annoying.
Well, it's
like-
like the Phoenix, like the Arizona Cardinals. They used to be the Phoenix Cardinals, but
Right, and then they're like, just go by the state. Nobody knows what's up Phoenix.
Are they
Yeah.
in Arlington, Texas?
no, I think that's the baseball team.
You know what the worst one though is Tampa Bay. Like in Green Bay, it makes sense because Green Bay is the name of the town. Tampa Bay is not the name of the town.
No, it's
Town
Tampa.
is Tampa. Tampa Bay is the actual body of water.
The Bay.
Why are you calling yourself Tampa Bay Buccaneers? That makes no sense.
They just like the B in the logo. The old Orange Crush Buccaneer.
It's just all dumb, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're gonna name
AT&T Stadium's in Arlington.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's probably. I bet the old Dallas Stadium was actually in Irving, maybe. But yeah, they probably moved.
We're gonna
it.
rename the Seattle Seahawks the Puget Sound Seahawks.
No, don't do that.
Salish Bay Seahawks.
San Francisco Bay 49ers. You just have to name your new team of the nearest body of water.
Pacific Ocean Raiders.
All right, so we got a fantasy update for everyone, gentlemen. We are all 3-3. So Zeb, you have been crushing it. You were 1-3. You're now back to 500. Well done. Ross and I, we're holding steady. It's a win loss kind of a week for us. The 3-step drop, they're doing quite well. Maddie and Lior beat me last week. Thank you for the whooping, Lior. They are 5-1, and then Coleman's 3-3. So they're doing quite well.
Which is bullshit.
We're all in the mix. We're all in the playoffs. The playoffs where it really matters. Regular season doesn't really matter. So we're still in the hunt. We do have a matchup. Coleman and Ross are facing each other 3-3 this week. I think the projection has you pretty
Gonna be a
even,
close one.
but I think you didn't have a kicker at the time. So definitely get a kicker on your roster.
Crush that crawdad.
I have Suckup.
Okay.
I was projected to win by 3 before today's game happened, and Cook had a pretty good day.
Okay.
Now I'm projected to lose by 1.5 points.
Lot of game to be made up, which actually leads us into our fantasy question. Is it better to sit with a lead going into the last few games, or to have players going and playing in the last few games? Ross, what position would you rather be in?
They're both kind of annoying. Something about the players being active on my team is a little bit more frustrating for me because somehow you sort of think you have some control over when you cheer, or I don't know, like it's just a more proactive feeling, and I dislike it. Like if the other team is just kind of creeping up on me as I watch their team game, it's the exact same process, right? Where it's passive for both, but somehow it feels active if it's your team. So I prefer to have the lead and see how and watch the other guy get close to me, see if we can catch up, rather than like having guys active and trying to definitely.
It just depends. Like, obviously it's always better to have the lead, but if all your guys have gone and they got Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson
And
Lions on Monday night,
and you've got like a 7-point lead.
yeah, then you're screwed. And the same thing applies, if you got a kicker and so just some dumb shit like that. So I don't know. I don't think I have a preference. I like to be up by about 58 going into Monday night.
And they only have like their tight end, and they play on a running team.
Yeah, exactly. Like they got Jesse James in Pittsburgh or something. He might get a couple of catches, but it's not going to be his touchdown week.
Yeah. I think it's always better to go into the final games with a lead. Hopefully you have a bigger lead, like Zeb was saying, than, scraping by. Because my luck, it's always I need like 26 points, and I've got, a kicker and a wide receiver left, and that's a lot of points to have if you're not playing PPR, and half of my leagues aren't PPR. So I think it's better to have a lead because it's easier to hope that someone doesn't get those points because that's the fluky nature of fantasy, as opposed to hoping that you can chase points and get back in it.
Dude, man, a couple weeks ago I wrote about it. I needed 3 points going into Monday night, like with Chris Thompson, who hadn't scored less than 15 points in a game, and he got me 1.7.
Yeah,
and he had 3.7 for a very, very narrow win for me. But then the very last play of the game, he did a flea flicker and I dropped, and so it counted as a fumble. So I lost a point, and so I lost. Very last play of the game, they're just doing one of those crazy try to keep the ball alive plays, but he was the last one to touch it and he dropped it.
Nice.
So I lost.
Nice.
Way to go, man.
Always the best about fantasy. All right, let's get some predictions in. Final score for Seattle and New York. Russ, what's your final score?
27-24, Seattle.
Okay.
I'm going full Wu-Tang Clan on this one. I say we win at 36-9.
Ooh, that would be
Seattle
a fun
doesn't
game
blow
to
anybody
watch.
We will this weekend.
Okay.
I'm probably closer to Ross. I'm thinking it's going to be a closer game. I like the Seahawks winning this 28-21. Who's going to have more turnovers, Russell Wilson or Eli Manning? Zeb.
Eli's going to 4 interceptions.
Ooh, that's a lot of points. Ross, what about you?
Man, Zeb's hating on the Giants. Manning. I think Wilson's going to have a turnover-free game. I think Manning's going to throw at least 2 picks.
All right. I think you have to go with Manning. He has a track record. My favorite thing about Eli Manning was one year when he had 20 interceptions. He said, "I'm not a quarterback that throws 20 interceptions." Literally, he had just had a season that he had 20 interceptions. Who's going to have more yards from the running back position? So no QB runs, Seattle or New York?
I'm going Seahawks, man. I think we're really gonna put together maybe our first complete game.
Ross, what about you?
Yeah. I mean, New York doesn't really have much back there, do they?
Orleans Darkwa went for 100-some plus yards.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody's done that once. I mean,
Yeah, he'll do that twice this year. That's just how they're running.
Right. I mean, it's not like a thing with them. The 2 weeks before that, Coleman was all of a sudden that guy. I mean, they don't even have real names. It's gotta
Where's Brandon Jacobs?
I'm going to say New York's going to get more yards. I think they're going to commit to it a little bit better than the Seahawks do. Russell Wilson was talking about wanting to be more up-tempo. And I can't remember if it was Greg Bell or Bob Condota. Someone on Twitter, a beat reporter, showed that the Seahawks score so much better with the up-tempo, no-huddle offense versus a huddling offense. And I think it's an unfair comparison, but it's kind of one of those, it fits this mold of, that's kind of what the Seahawks need. They need either the pressure to try and score, or they have a short clock that they need to try and score in, and they just go into this mode, and they always succeed, which gives the impression that that's what would work well all the time, which I don't know.
Right. Well, what I think we're going to be up so much with so much time left that we'll just turn to the run at that point and grind it out and wear them down. And
okay, let's put it this way. Which Seattle running back will have the most yards?
Maybe it's be Rawls' week finally.
I feel like Lacey, but it says a lot that we have no idea.
Yeah, I mean,
McKissick.
I'd actually like McKissick. I don't think it'll be rushing yards, but I think it'll be all-purpose yards.
But McKissick can't be an every down back. I mean,
No, but
likely.
He played well again in that Indianapolis game. So
really good.
All right, yes or no? Are they going to show Are they going to show any Percy Harvin clips from the Super Bowl in this Seattle game?
They'll probably have a segment with 2 or 3 highlights, and that one will probably be in there.
I don't know. I feel like they're going to show Peyton Manning missing that first snap, and it goes out for the safety over and over again.
It might show that too.
I think they'll definitely show Super Bowl clips. I'm kind of thinking that they are going to show that Percy Harvin clip just because, kickoffs for touchdowns are pretty exciting.
They'll show the tip drill interception that we had against them that year prior to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's actually a great play with Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas.
Yep.
All right, who's going to have the longer play? A Manning interception return or a Seahawks wide receiver catch?
Interception return.
Nah, Seahawks catch P. Rich.
I'm going to go Seahawks catch. I think Doug Baldwin is going to have a really good day. I have a feeling that this is a chance for him to shine. I don't think the corners in New York are that great. I think Doug's going to take advantage.
Here's my question. Will Brandon Browner intercept the pass to seal the victory? Back for a touchdown.
Man, that 1 year in 2012, he had like 8 interceptions and 2 touchdowns off of those. He had such a good year. He went to the Pro Bowl that year.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. And gentlemen, that's our show. Shoutouts.
Go to triplebpodcast.com and listen to some of those episodes. And shout out to Joe Guns and Smoke M2D6.
Shout out to Ryan Johnson. I heard he's got a good flick coming out soon. Shout out to R5D4. I don't care what they say. You didn't try to blow yourself up on purpose so the R2 could fulfill his destiny. That's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
So want to give some shout outs to my coworkers. ZG Life, thank you for checking us out. Check us out at hawkscast.com. Check us out on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast. Check us out on Facebook at the Seahawks FanTable. My name is Sam. With me is Zeb and Ross. We thank you for listening to us. And go Hawks.
Go Hawks.